Let me
Yeah.
hear that. Let me hear that.
So, um, so yeah. So it's just back to my point. It's that if that article is true, which why wouldn't it be? Northwestern University, accredited university, very prestigious university, top professors, top scientists from all over the world, and if they're saying that this reservoir of water exists, then what do we really know for real? Like what it's this is what I believe. I think that the wealth of information that's out there, it's it's too it's too captivating for the average Joe, to swallow. It's the pill is too big for him to swallow.
Right.
Life in your normal day-to-day existence, paying bills, that's hard enough for the common man, right? You're not trying to overload yourself with things that might not be.
Research
Yeah, yeah,
of
like
Northwestern Inter University's scientific.
right, like look at
Yeah,
look, like we probably could have went to these universities, you know what I mean? Like just surely by our what our interests are and what we're talking about, right?
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
but that's not the average person. And that's why the average person doesn't realize that there's something amiss here. There's something going on here. And not to say we're going to really truly get to the bottom of knowing what that actually is, but a
We
guy
gonna
can
crack that shit open though.
a guy can hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
A
let
g-
me ask you something that I heard somebody else ask somebody.
okay.
If I want to say it was like a Joe Rogan clip or something like that. If there was 5 years from now, we've amassed all these episodes, we've done all this research. A secret government agency or non-government agency says, "Yo, we'll show you something. We like what you're doing. We like what you're showing the people." You can never say, or even if you do say it, nobody will believe you. But if we'll show you something so long as you can never tell people. Would you say yes or would you say no?
I'll say yes, absolutely.
You'll say yes, and would you keep it a secret?
Sure. See, I don't care.
And
See, this is the thing. I don't care if anybody else knows. Like, I don't.
I
I'm
am doing this for me. That's true. We
I,
are.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm I'm kind of selfish in the sense that
that's
like
true.
the same thing with music, right? Like if I find a new group that I enjoy their music, I might tell a person or two, but really I'm just trying to keep this music to myself because I'm like, if you find it on your own, cool,
Yeah,
like
you find it on your right,
it's
right,
good
right.
stuff. But until then, I'm jamming. You know what I'm saying? To some stuff you never heard, and you're like, what is that? Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just listen
I'm
to
not
the
doing all this research for you. I'm doing this for me. And if you
right.
if you have enough interest and enough discipline to follow this rabbit hole, then you know what I'm saying, more power to you. And if you don't, well, then you'll never know. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is this path is not for everybody. Like the path that you've been on since I've known you, the path that I've been on, this is not for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, we genuinely we genuinely are out here for the
Searching,
knowledge. Like we love
searching.
it.
Absolutely.
Like for me, it's like the basis of just it's probably the most enjoyable thing in my life is just learning new things and coming to new conclusions. I mean, to me, there's like, what else is there to do? Like we only, if this is, if we only have one life and it's relatively short, then shit, I might as well just learn as much as I can about what this existence is that I'm living. It's easy to just think you have all the answers, like, oh yeah, per the Bible, we 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 were created 2,000 years ago, and then science is like, what? Like this shit's been around for billions of years. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's just it's like those discrepancies are just too, it's too big of a gap to not explore it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, but
And
yeah.
not to mention there are the more the world is getting smaller through the internet, the more we're seeing that just doesn't add up. The more we're seeing that piles on to the inexplicable when it comes to ancient sites, when it comes to I was doing some research a couple of months ago about the Eye of the Sahara and how they're trying to claim that to be a natural formation. But the Eye of the Sahara, if you Google that, and then if you Google, what is it? I want to say Plato's description of Solon's visit to Atlantis, that he describes the Eye of the Sahara as it would have been in its, in its heyday, in its glory.
Mm,
And
right,
these are all just things that, coupled with there being this specific form of pyramid on every continent, coupled with, Easter Island, coupled with it's just too much, bro.
bro.
There's just way too much for it to just be like, nah, I just gotta go pay rent. Like that's
Did
not
you?
what my life is gonna be here about, bro.
Right, right.
I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah. I mean, to your point that you made earlier about like human beings being engineered and like dumbing us down. When to me, when you have a certain IQ, you can damn near feel these things to be true. Like as you're moving around, like living this monotonous life of paying bills and you know paying taxes and all these things, you can damn near feel how it's being used to like subdue you. It's like a stranglehold that they're trying to put on you.
Hundred
um
percent.
that really it makes it where you don't have the brain capacity to think of anything outside of that. It's almost like that
Right.
idea of like what it is, what it means to be an adult. It's this idea of like, well, being an adult is just paying bills. You hear people say this all the time. The only difference in being an adult and a child is bills, right? So it's like,
Hundred
so it's
percent.
like,
And you don't play. There's no more play.
right. So before you were paying bills, you were creative, you thought outside the box, you were adventurous, you thought about interesting things, you cared about dinosaurs and nature and all these different things, right? But then it goes from that to you just go to work and go home, eat and go to sleep.
And you do that for 40
And,
years
and now you gotta
until
go,
you retire,
and now you
and
got
then you can go play.
right, and now you gotta go talk to a therapist and figure out why your life is in shambles. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like think about how crazy that is, right? Like it's insane. You know what I mean? So it's like for the life of me, I'm like, I can't, and Kanye used to say it all the time. It's like he wants to keep that same childlike
Mhm.
mentality, to not lose that creativity. And I totally get it. I mean, not to say that he's like, some
He's
great
doing it well.
philosopher.
He's not doing it well, but he's absolutely still making that a priority. And Michael Jackson said the same thing. He
Yeah, for
said,
sure.
"Imitate the children. Be childlike, but not childish."
Right, for
And
sure.
we are very much losing that aspect of humanity, that aspect of our humanity. And it's not our fault. If we had more time to be able to enjoy that, we would. But unfortunately, there is nothing given in this world. You have to take it. And what this
Sure.
podcast is going to be is the taking of that childish joy that it brings us to look at life through what ifs, right?
Right.
I
And
think that's going to be my favorite part of this.
and the funny, what the funny thing about it is, you know, I get it from both sides. So say like, the scientific community, the kind of archaic scientific community. Graham Hancock talks about this all the time, where he's like he hates the fact that they just try to make it seem like it's so rigid and they have all the answers when clearly there's not even enough evidence to really say you have all the answers. But I get it from both sides because as the scientific community, if you're professors at universities and you have to do research that you know are being funded millions of billions of dollars to have some type of result. Well, the result is based in what you can actually prove. That's the whole thing with science. It's all about what can you factually prove. And so for them, their perspective is that we understand that there's what ifs out there, but we can't prove that. And the donors that gave us this money, they don't want to hear about what we are postulating. They want to see actual results about what is, right? So it's easy to it makes sense for them to kind of cast away
Hold on to this
and
old way of doing it. And
yeah,
also think about them doing the same research for 20 or 30 years before they get the tenure at whatever prestigious university. So they've been doing this specific research in a specific way for this particular end. And then they come into contact with something like Göbekli Tepe, which doesn't align with whatever research they're doing. They're not going to be like, oh, well, let's throw all this 25 years of research out and let's figure out whatever, let's include or start over with this particular site. They're just not going to do that. And
right,
there's too much writing on keeping this old way of doing things. That's why Graham Hancock, John Anthony West, when it comes to Egypt in particular, these people are the real heralds because they have no dog in the fight. They have no investment. It doesn't do them any good to speak on what they're speaking on. They're doing it straight out of interest, and they're following the information, and they're not trying to create their own narrative. So that's who we're going to end up being, Kinos. That's exactly the lineage that we have to look forward to, and the
So
people that we have to look forward to interviewing as well, man. Wait till we get flown out, bro. Wait till we get bro. Wait till we get to be able to do. I went to the pyramids, like I told you, the pyramids in Mexico City. Wait till we are able to really do episodes like that, man.
Professor, my hands up. Can I say something? Can I say something? Because I just
Speak on
want
it,
to
brother. Speak
I
on
just,
it,
I
man.
just want to interject this real quick. You know, I hate I hate to just be bouncing all over the place, and I think we're doing a good job of just real, bringing this all together. But this is one article and one video that forever um changed not how I think, but just to me, when I hear people talk about, oh, these conspiracies, these what ifs, I'm just like, man, you just don't read enough. It's just what the fact is. People that don't read think everything is a conspiracy, but the people that do read realize that shit, 75% of those conspiracies are proven by reading,
Yeah,
right? So
sir.
check this
Yes,
out.
sir.
I don't know if we ever talked about this. Did you know that after Neil Armstrong, one of the most famous NASA astronauts, if not the most famous, do you not realize that when he got back from doing his moonwalk, he led an expedition to the Amazon to find a
Yes.
legendary library,
Golden, the golden tablets or something?
like golden books. Led a legendary expedition to the Amazon to find a library that holds all knowledge of an advanced alien civilization. Now, let me ask you a question. One of the things that people tried to dismiss. Oh yeah,
Get to it, bro.
Okay, cool. They haven't talked about this on Rogan. You know what I mean? They haven't got to this yet, right? So
Uh-huh. Huh?
my thing is this: the dismissal of things are typically on the foundations of the person that's telling this story is
It's
a
a kook.
crackpot, is a kook,
Yep.
right?
Can't say that
Okay,
about Neil Armstrong.
this is Neil
Can't.
effing Armstrong, okay?
Can't say that about
Because
him.
in one sentence, say if people didn't know this about Neil Armstrong, right? They'll say, "Oh my God, Neil Armstrong, he's one of the greatest human beings to ever walk the earth, one of the most accomplished men ever, and one of the first men to walk on the moon, and da 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 da." Like they would just reel off his accolades, right? But then I'm sure if they heard about this story, they'll be like, "Well, you know what? Neil
Wait.
Armstrong might have been crazy, right?" Like it's like, no, guys,
You
no.
can't have both. You
I'm
can't
sorry,
have
guys.
both.
Look, guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to tell you, but there's kind of like a pattern that we're seeing here, right? The pattern is that, especially when it comes to these declarated people. I mean, we talk about Admiral Byrd and his
Just
story
gonna
of
go
Hollow Earth or whatever, and him being this decorated military veteran that they put a parade on for this guy. Like he was not like some small fry.
Not to
But
mention, he led that whole expedition to Antarctica in the first place. It wasn't just like he flew a plane. They had battleships heading to Antarctica with him at the helm. For what? For what, Kinos? Man.
so my point is that there's a common thread that we're seeing here, and the common thread is that we're seeing individuals, high-ranking individuals, trustworthy individuals, declarated individuals who they've had some sort of experience. I'm not going to say what that is, right? Like, I don't know what that is, right? I can't say 100% what that is. All I know is that if a guy goes to the moon, which, is this huge frontier for mankind, it's the farthest we've ever been away from the earth, you know, and we don't know what's up there, right? We don't know what's on the moon, but there's obviously stories about that as well.
Right.
I think there was one story where they said the radio transmission when they landed on the moon, one of the astronauts radioed back to Houston and said,
They see us.
"They're
They're on the other side of that crater.
they're
They're
looking
looking.
at us from the crater." Jesus Christ! Okay, Jesus Christ! All right.
He knows.
They make you shit your pants, okay? Like, look, hey, look, they said Houston turned that radio on so fast. They're like, oh, my nigga, hold on.
Wait, we can't hear you.
They froze the transmission like this. They're like, cut the feed. All right, cut the feed.
Cut it.
Oh
Y'all didn't hear anything, all right?
So, my thing is this. A guy like Neil Armstrong doesn't just ironically come back from his, life-changing expedition to the moon, sets foot back on Earth, and immediately turns his sights not just towards anything. Like it's not like he landed and said,
a year off.
He
didn't land and just hung out.
I don't know where to go, guys. Like, can you point me in the right direction? The guy put his foot back on Earth's soil and said, "We're going to the Amazon."
To the Amazon, bro. To the Amazon in the 70s or 60s, bro.
How about I just look up a little bit so we can just read this out loud, just a little bit.
Yes, please.
Nothing.
To
nothing
the
major.
Amazon. That's a very, very good question, man.
Nothing major.
We're not talking about giants. We're talking about knowledge. Man, he came. Yeah. That's going to be a theme of the show, bro. We're going to, man. Man. Oh, Neil Armstrong.
Yeah, man. So,
where to Stanley Kubrick. There's a video on that as well. This is a YouTube video.
Yeah, the video is actually really dope. Maybe one day we can review that video.
Break that down. Hey, replay and review.
So somebody says this guy is on a website. He's supposedly a former aerospace engineer. He says Neil Armstrong was involved in an expedition in 1976 to Teos Cave, Cueva de los Teos in Ecuador. The cave was linked to extraterrestrial activity, including reports of a library supposedly inscribed onto metallic books. Though nothing was found, though nothing was found, there has been much speculation about Armstrong choosing to be included with the expedition, given the theory that he and Buzz Aldrin experienced alien craft during their moon landing in 1969. So between a span of 7 years from the time he landed on the moon to 1976, he found himself going to the Amazon to look for.
And again, this is in the 70s, bro. This was no easy feat. This isn't just hopping on a plane. This isn't just flying in.
But look, Femi, think about it like this, bro. In the 60s, conspiracy wasn't even really a thing at that time.
That's true, bro. That's very true.
And see, that's my main thing about it is it's like the farther you get away from the social media era, the woke era, this era of, oh my God, you think everything's a conspiracy. Like this whole thing, like, okay, let's go back to a time where people weren't really uttering the words of conspiracy like that. Like what kind of conspiracies lingered around 1950, 1960. I don't really think that there was much going on around that time. Maybe the conspiracy of who killed JFK or something like that. Yeah. But there was no real deal. Obviously you had, the whole Roswell thing, and maybe some people knew about it, some people didn't, as far as like the story in itself. And so maybe that became lore and conspiracy, but I feel like there wasn't as much conspiracy talk back then. So Neil Armstrong, what was the, find me somebody that was 20, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old around that 1970s pinpoint and say, do you remember them talking about on the news that Neil Armstrong went to the jungles of the Amazon looking for these gold metallic books talking about ancient, it's like that, it probably wasn't even talked about in the quote unquote mainstream of that time period. So there's no sense in thinking that there's some, laughable conspiracy. Nobody even knew about it to even care, so that to me that gives it a degree of it makes
validity.
Validity, and it's legible, you know what I mean? So
going on that same vein, you reminded me of something that I read that for whatever reason has a Wikipedia page, and people still don't take this seriously. 1952 Washington D.C. UFO incident.
Mm.
From July to July 29th, 1952, a series of unidentified flying objects sightings were reported in Washington D.C. Later became known as the Washington Flap or the invasion of Washington. The most publicized sighting took place on consecutive weekends, July 19th and 20th, 26th, and 27th. And these were actually talked about, or not even declassified, but talked about by either the US military or the Secretary of State, saying, yes, we don't know what these things were. They were over the Capitol building in DC. And yeah, we don't know what they were. And it just disappeared into it just disappeared into history. Like, yeah, this happened, and we're gonna admit that this happened, but we're not gonna follow up with it. So you're better off just ignoring it.
So one thing I wanted to bring up about UFOs, I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but kind of when you do all this research and kind of tie everything in, the ocean, the hollow earth, and all these things. What if the idea really is that, say, there are UFOs that are coming from outside of our atmosphere, right? What if they're just totally uninterested with the surface world in a sense, meaning that when they're coming from wherever they're coming from, their trajectory is immediately into the ocean. Like it's like that's the highway. Like, we're taking this ride, and these humans think we're just on the surface, we're just in the
What is all
air,
this on
just
the surface? What is this little
lollygagging.
bitty?
It's like what where we're going is where you guys don't go.
Mhm. This ain't the
So
Earth. This is just literally this is surface level. This is we're on the surface. This is some surface level shit. Like the real or what can be explained or what can be really researched is definitely in the depths of
it's
of
almost
Earth.
like
The
that.
depths
I,
of Earth.
I just thought about it, but it's like that idea of they talk about like icebergs, right? There's only like this small percentage of the iceberg
Mhm.
that's above the water,
Mhm.
and the majority of it is, or 80% of it is actually underneath water. And it's kind of that idea. It's that we're, there's a guy named I think his name is Eloise Elizondo, and he had a high ranking position with Christopher Mellon. If you look up these names, they were associated with David Favor Favor Fravor. I'm sorry, Fravor, who was a pilot in the military with the famous Tic Tac incident that was off the coast of like San Diego, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Christopher Mellon, if you look him up, once again, a very accomplished gentleman. I believe his father was actually a part of like Carnegie Mellon, like, so he's like from like a, the like a blue blood family almost. But he's always had this fascination with UFOs. But yeah, this other guy, I think his name is Luis Elizondo. He held a high ranking position like with the Department of Defense, as well as Christopher Mellon. And he said that we'll have to go over this particular video as well. And he said he was being interviewed, and he was referencing somebody that he felt like had a higher level of knowledge about this situation than he did. And he said he was having that conversation with the person, and they said, or he was about to put out some information saying, UFOs, or unidentified aerial phenomena. And the higher up that he was talking to said, what makes you think that it's an aerial thing?
Hmm.
As in, like,
As-
we're you're have you ever thought about the idea that this is a sub, a sub aquatic type of ordeal? What makes you think that these objects are not actually navigating and operating mostly within the oceans?
Underwater. Right.
um
The Dogon will say that. The Dogon will say the people that brought them the information that they know of the universe came from
mhm.
fish people. They came from people
Mm.
that from within, like literally all of so much of their so much history is showing that the people that gave them the information that they knew what DNA, how DNA was constructed, what Sirius B looked like, you know what I'm saying, before telescopes and all that. And
Right.
they were taught by fish people. They were taught that by
And I
people that
mean,
regularly came to them out of the water.
the thing is, I mean, once again,
Hmm.
how else would they know this stuff?
Impossible for them to know.
It's impossible.
Impossible.
It's impossible. I mean,
Impossible, bro.
even what Graham Hancock was talking about with the pyramids, that the pyramids are not only a marvel from a construction standpoint, as far as like how did you piece together these huge stones that, at this time there was no machinery that would be able to pull the feet off. It's also this idea that the pyramid is actually, and a lot of pyramids are actually geometrically aligned with star systems. What the fuck are we talking about? Like what,
How in the
bro,
world?
like
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like so. Not only is the issue of trying to figure out how they constructed it, but not only was it constructed, it was lined up perfectly with things that
True.
are
Nowhere
millions of light
with
years away.
absolutely, absolutely. Why would you pick the what Orion's belt? Of all places, why would you pick Orion's belt to align the pyramids of Giza at the Giza plateau? For what? For what reason? For what significance? As if building them isn't hard enough. Then you're going to give yourself uh the added feat or the added difficulty of aligning it perfectly to star systems. Nah, man. No, not.
He
Nah,
said,
man.
nah, man, nah. I mean, but that's the thing. I ain't going for it. I know you ain't going for it. I
I'm
ain't
not
going
going for
for
it,
it.
man. We figuring it out,
I ain't
man.
going
We
for it.
figuring it out, or at least cracking the door open so somebody else can, man.
But
Because
real,
this ain't it, bro.
real
Whatever I'm
talk
hearing,
though,
this ain't it.
this is why I give a lot of respect to people like Graham Hancock and just scientists
Absolutely,
in general, is because
absolutely.
if you wanted to sit down and actually write these things out, make a blueprint of these things, I'm pretty sure we could come to a better understanding of what the bigger picture that we're looking at. It's just that we're going off the top of the head with just information that's stored in our heads. But for those types of people, they're actually dedicating the time to piece it together strategically, with actual cohesion, to be able to tell you, like, this is what I postulate about what we're actually studying. Like, this is what I think, this is the story that's being told through what we're the knowledge that we're getting or that we've
And they're
amassed.
facing
So
ridicule, bro. Graham Hancock was like a journalist. You know what I'm saying? I think he was like a BBC journalist or something like that.
mm,
And then he came across some ancient artifacts and he started doing some research. He was like, "Yo, I didn't choose this life. This life chose me." You know what I'm saying? Like he was like, "I was fine doing whatever I was doing. This I just had to follow this because what I've been told about this and what I'm seeing doesn't add up. So I had to. I felt like it was a responsibility to follow up on this and to really explore." And he said that's how the books, came about. That's how his deep fascination with what was going on, because he was like, "Yo, I could have just easily." He had a cushy job. He was enjoying whatever he was doing, but he just could not leave this alone because of what it represented, what it stood for. And as a true journalist, he was like, "This is what I became." John Anthony West is the same. Those are the two people that, what I'm saying? Like I would have their pictures up in my house, because these are people that put the information above themselves, faced ridicule. John Anthony West, like that, he was almost like Nikola Tesla. He died broke. I mean, right, God bless it. I'm pretty sure he's dead now. And if he's not, he has not
but look,
enjoyed any kind of fame.
what's the difference between dying broke and dying rich?
You still dying.
You still dying, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's
You
like
still dying. One
it's
person will be a
just
little bit more mad. I'll
right.
be
But I
mad as
mean,
hell if I died rich.
right. But I mean, it's just this idea that, like Graham Hancock says, I mean, it's like when you are dealing with conventional science, it's kind of a dead end. It's like what kind of zeal can you really have for something that is telling you that we already have all the answers, and there's not really much to, it's just regurgitating the same old stuff, and we're just going to teach these students and test them on the same stuff that we've been teaching for 40 years, and there's no nuance to anything, there's no innovation to
No
anything. It's
introduction,
just
no innovation. Exactly. There's no creativity. There's not even like entertainment of what could be. And all the people that try to, you're fringe or you get disbarred or you get, detenured and things like that. And Nobody wants that. Everyone's doing this for a cushy existence into old age, and not everybody, thankfully, not everybody. And so that's what
For
makes
sure.
this. That's what makes our adventure. Now that we're finally crystallizing it, you know what I mean. We've been thinking about this for years. We've been postulating and talking about all the different things that we've researched, and now that we're gonna have a formal way of preserving it and sharing it, and this excites me because one of my favorite movies is Lady in the Water by M. Night Shyamalan. And
Okay,
in
I
that
remember that
movie,
movie.
bro, that movie is it's probably top 10 movies for me.
Mm,
And there was a point in the movie where he was told that he's going to write a book that's going to create great change in the world. And he's not going to be able to see that great change
hmm.
because of, his someone's going to kill him for the book that he wrote. But years
Right.
later, someone else is going to read his book and that person is going to change the world. And that right there, man, if I could leave that, if that could be my legacy, bro, that totally worth it.
Yeah,
Totally
for
worth it.
sure.
Die or not die. If I can just create this so that someone in the future starts asking these questions, or even someone now, man,
Yeah,
man,
M Night Shyamalan is dope. Real quick, to much props to him for always creating interesting dynamics in his films. One of my favorite movies that he did was Signs. Um,
amazing.
yeah, it's just he's kind of he almost reminds me of like the scientific version of like Tarantino or something. He just is kind of
I like that.
very abstract guy and how he produces his work. But even what was his movie? The movie where they were living in the woods
The
and
Village.
the village, and
I love that movie, bro.
that whole time they're just stuck in this village and they're being told about these
Yeah.
creatures in the woods and these things, and then finally they get to the edge of their
And
civilization,
like, yeah,
and
and a car drives by.
they like hop the fence, and it's like a Hummer.
Bro, what a great twist, bro. What a
Yo,
great
you
twist, yo.
just like you just like
Wait,
your mind is
what?
like, you know
Blown,
what I
bro.
mean?
Blown. Nah,
Because
that
like
was an amazing twist.
imagine being those people, that's
Right.
since you were born, you're being told this story, you're being confined, and really,
That's exact, bro. That's an
it's
allegory of what we're
symbolism.
dealing with today.
Exactly. I mean, it's so spot on to what we're experiencing out here. It's just like we're being told this story over and over until the lie. It's just that idea of you tell a lie so many times that it becomes the truth, and that's what they're doing. They're just pumping us with this lie over and over. Oh, that's conspiracy. Oh, this is this. Why are you talking about that? Why do you care about this? Just read this book and shut up and get this
Mm.
grade and become a good worker and get a 4.0. It's like, dude, like shut the fuck up. And
What?
like I
Yeah,
want to talk about this stuff over here. Like
yeah,
there's some other stuff we're not talking about, and I'll gravitate over to that side.
absolutely.
But yeah, so it's definitely spot on to what we're experiencing out here. And it's like we're waiting we're essentially waiting for that proverbial hopping of the fence that we're at to see that Hummer drive by. Like we're waiting to
Mm,
see what that Hummer is for us. Like
mm,
what is that, that we're going to
100%,
experience that is going to be the mind-blowing thing for us. So
100%.
it's a cool goal to, to be after.
And to give
Because
this and to give this and to give this offering to somebody who could could begin their journey much earlier than we did, right? Because I know personally my journey early on was trying to fit in, was trying to value what this society and what this culture wanted me to value, though my mind was on so many other things that I was interested in. So I really hope that this could encourage somebody half of our age to say, yo, you know what? I could take a liking to this. I could take an interest in this much earlier so that I could get much further and pick up this mantle and keep it moving. That's my hope in this offering and what we have to research and provide here, especially for us, right? Because I think there's so much history that is just not it just doesn't resonate. And I think when you have that, you talk about IQ, but I also think it's emotional as well, right? I think it's tapping into another intelligence that isn't the monkey brain. It's something older than, it's something in us that's older that knows um what we seek And if you believe in that spiritual aspect, what you seek seeks you. So this information is out there for us to find. And we are going to amass a group of people who are going to be extremely interested in giving us the tools to take this to another level, bro. Like this, Kinos, man. Remember this pilot episode, because we're going to look back at this and laugh so hard
All right, for
because of
sure.
how far we're going to go with this, man. And I have no doubt about it. That's absolutely no doubt. So
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. I think we just continue to have intriguing conversation because I mean it's all authentic. Obviously, I mean we read a few things, but a lot of this is just off the top because I mean that's just
Yeah, bro. This whole hour and plus that we've gone, like you said, we've jumped all around. Admiral Byrd, we've gone everywhere, and we still haven't even talked about 20%. We've talked about what 50% of what we know, 20% of what we know, but to actually have structure to be able to break it down by episode and talk about things like that. Man.
We have 3 minutes until this time's out, and I guess we can conclude it there. I want to say one thing. There was one thing that I brought to your attention at one point. A guy named Jacques Vallée, older gentleman. I think he's from France, I believe, but he wrote a book about. I believe he wrote a book about Hollow Earth, and ironically, I think, matter of fact, I think I was in Guadalajara when we talked about it because I didn't realize that the same guy that I was reading about had already been on Joe Rogan, and I was like, oh, no wonder I thought his name
Oh,
was
I remember.
familiar
Yeah.
because he's
You
actually
said
been
that
on,
when we were watching the episode.
yeah, and he's actually been on Rogan. But this is what I wanted to say: you guys you're not tricking me, and the reason why I say this is because this guy wrote a whole book on Hollow Earth, right? So if somebody dedicates themselves to write a whole book, clearly they find this topic to be of some importance, right? They think it's something that should be explored. Well, the fact that he went on Joe Rogan and they did not bring that topic up at all. To me, it's like I respect Joe Rogan. I think that he's at the forefront of having interesting conversations with interesting people, scientists, and just the doctors, the lawyers, whoever. Like he talks to everybody. But I find it peculiar when you have a person on your show and one of their life's works is this interesting topic that doesn't get discussed a lot. That's why I believe it's true, is because when something isn't like they'll talk about UFOs all day. It's like, oh yeah, we'll just confuse them. We'll call them UFOs, UAPs, UAVs, like whatever, like UTVs, whatever. Like it's just like just give them 3 letters and they'll just
Right.
run around with their heads chopped off like little chickens. But there's something about a topic that is rarely discussed when there is such as that article about the ocean 400 miles deep inside the earth. There's something to that when there's credible information out there and it's not being talked about. When it's not being talked about, to me, that's where you go looking.
I agree.
You start there. Whatever the topics are that they're avoiding, almost it seems like purposefully.
Right. That can't be talked about.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like now you're good. Now you're venturing into deep waters. Now it's like you can talk about the little UFOs, the little green men, and the gray aliens and all. You can talk about all that. Like that's cool. That's been around for forever. But once you start talking about Hollow Earth and Agartha, and I mean we could start talking about the Roriks from, I think they were from Russia, that led a exploration to look for Agartha. Yeah, we're gonna get into all that because all this is like documented stuff, and when you start piecing it together, you're like, what's really going on out here, and why are people not talking about these certain stories? Because they could be as fascinating or even more fascinating than the things that are commonly talked about. So we're going to talk about them, and
you're gonna get that here.
Yeah,
Woo.
for sure.
Woo. I'm doing research as soon as we get off this Zoom, bro. What's our sneak peek for the next episode? What do we want to start with? Do you want to start with I like Hollow Earth. I like the unexplored sea.
Yeah, I say we go with Hollow Earth. I think there's a lot that we just kind of talked about it surfacely, but I think we should dive deep into that.
I see what you did there. Hollow Earth surface. I see what you did there.
Yeah,
Don't even ask me how.
I was a rapper in my past life.